Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a while. So basically the MacBook that I used to use to edit my videos, which I share with my boyfriend, broke. And if you're seeing this video, that means I was able to wrangle my very old, I think 10 or 15-year-old MacBook from college back to life. And I was able to edit it, so that's great. Let me know in the comments how you're doing, what you're reading. Have you found any amazing new summer reads? And what are you watching right now? Since my last video, I have read 12 more books, and I figured I'll just do a big recent reads reading wrap up instead of doing it by month and just quickly go over every single book. Going all the way back to April, I read Season of Migration to the North by Tayeb Salih. This is kind of the post-colonial novel from Sudan. It was written in Arabic and translated by Dennis Johnson Davies in 1969. The rating I gave this book is 4 stars, so I definitely enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the prose. It's written in kind of vignette style reflections, hopping from memory to memory, because it's not just about one main character, but about that main character learning about another character's life. This is about the cultural identity and identity of a man within the village in post-colonial times, but also their times being abroad. I think it was in London, where they lived for a period of time, encountered many women. As a caveat, the depiction of the women in this book is not positive. It is very much tainted with the small role that women play in this patriarchal world. As I was grabbing this book, I couldn't quite remember why I gave this 4 stars, because it's been a few months. And to be honest, I binge read this book because I had to get ready for an IRL book discussion. But now as I'm actually talking about it, all the positive things are coming back to me. So I think I'll just leave it at the 4-star rating, because that's what I gave it at the time upon finishing it. It's a short read and it's an important work of fiction. So yeah, if you're interested in reading translated books, then I can recommend this, even though I don't remember too much about it. Next up is this huge chunker of a book. It is Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I gave this a whopping 4.5 stars, almost a perfect 5-star. And this is book number 2 in the Susan Ryland mysteries. And I absolutely adore this. As a mystery lover, I think these books are a must. But don't start with this one. Start with, what is the name? Okay, I don't know where it is, but the first one is called Magpie Murders. And both Magpie Murders and Moonflower Murders are a story within a story. So you get 2 literal stories, like fleshed out, that's why it's so thick, in one book. And it's about a manuscript, usually, like a mystery book in itself, that is read by a mystery editor. Her name is Susan Ryland. And the mystery in the book flows in with the murder mystery of real life. And they're always interconnected in some way, but always in the most unexpected way possible. I was never able to figure out what was going on until the denouement, basically. And I thought, yeah, it was so much fun. It's very self-aware. There's so many references to, to Agatha Christie and the big mystery writers in this world. And it's playing also a lot with, tropes. If you're a lover of the classic mystery, if you're an Agatha Christie fan, then I highly recommend that you pick up Magpie Murders. No questions asked. I think you will enjoy it so much. Then I read We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. So this is a very, very hyped up book, and I was excited to dig into this. The premise of this sounded very interesting. It's basically about a young-ish couple. They move into a new house, and then one day one of the women is alone, and then this family knocks on their door, and they're like, hey, like, it's 2 parents with 2 kids, and the dad's like, you know what, this was my childhood home, super random, but I was hoping to just give, the kids a little tour and show them the house where I used to live, where I grew up. Because the I'm forgetting the name, but the main character is, she gets into a situation where she's kind of a people pleaser, and it's kind of hard in that moment to say no because they seem innocent enough. She lets them in, and then they just don't leave. And the mystery ensues from there. So I don't want to give away too much, but essentially one of the major booktubers that I follow, she said, I don't want to name her because I do still love her. I watch all of her videos, but she did say in one of her videos that, you know, in the end it's like satisfying because it's like this weird mystery, but you still get answers. You do not get answers, okay? This is pretty much an open ending, and the reason why I'm saying this is if you're someone like me who does not enjoy that, who has issues with, you know, like it's open to interpretation, then this book is not for you. I gave this 2.5 stars. I couldn't believe that that's how it ended. Have you read House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielowski? This is kind of in that vein. Like the book in itself is just written in normal prose, like nothing crazy. The book in itself is not a puzzle, but the mystery is, and it's mind-bendy. I will give it that. If you enjoy ambiguous endings, mind-bending fiction, mystery / horror, then this is for you. But just know that no, you are not getting straight answers to this book. If you have a different opinion than me, if you read this and you're like, what do you mean? Like it's so clear, then I'm actually curious. Let me know in the comments what you think, what all of it meant, but just maybe make sure that you know, put in your comment that it's a spoiler. I'm really curious, but I was really annoyed by the end of it, and I know that there's like 1,000 Reddit threads that pick this book apart, but I just didn't feel like going any further into it, so 2.5 stars. Next, I read The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. So very proud of myself. This is book number 2 in this fantasy series by N.K. Jemisin. It's the Broken Earth trilogy. The first book is the 5th season. The 5th season I gave 4 stars, really enjoyed it. The Obelisk Gate I gave 3 stars, but nevertheless I'm proud because usually it takes me like, I will start a series and it'll take me years until I read the second book, and in this series I'm so determined to finish the series within the same year that I started it, and I'm succeeding because I already started the 3rd book as we're speaking. I'm reading it right now, and then the series is done. This trilogy takes place in a far, far, far dystopian land where you have people with very special powers that can, to not spoil anything and to keep it vague, can essentially in a way control elements. They have these magical telekinetic abilities, and our main character Essen, she's trying to find her daughter because her daughter has these same abilities, and people like her are being hunted down. So it's this big quest. Book number 2 was a little bit slower. There's also this very cool, I don't know if you can call it a twist, but like a surprise revelation that happens in book 1 that was really this like big wow moment that was entirely missing from book 2. I was kind of waiting for like a surprise like that to come back, but it just didn't. Also, it feels a little bit claustrophobic. Everything happens, you know, within a short span of time, and yet we kind of are always in the same spaces. It's written well enough, like the prose, for, you know, it's a quick read. You want to keep reading. It's just nothing that really stood out to me. So I'm just hoping that I'll have a satisfying book number 3. I'm, I think, 15% of the way into it, and it's a fine read. I'm not sure that this will go down as one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I don't think so, but I'm still curious to see how it ends. Then I read, finally, Pachinko by Jin Lee. This was a 4-star read for me. You probably heard about this book. It's super famous, and I will say that it was unputdownable. I read this within a very short amount of time, even though I was out and about traveling, exploring all day. I just, every second I had where I was dining alone, eating alone, I would take out my Kindle and read because I needed to know what happens next. So this is a multi-generational family saga that takes place over a few decades, over a few generations, and it takes place at first in Korea under the Japanese occupation, and then, well, actually, let's leave it at that because I don't want to give anything away, but that's where it starts. It's so captivating because you get invested into these people, and yet life is so short and fleeting. So, you know, you don't sometimes get that much time with them. And when you think you're following one main character, suddenly like things change, and then we hop to the next POV. It can get very sad because we are in the midst of war during this book. It's just so interesting that we're not focused on one person, one specific time of their life, but instead see this family mosaic grow and see how the decisions from a prior generation affect the generation after, and maybe the one even after. It's very fascinating. It feels like you're looking at life through this zoomed out lens, and it's just very intriguing. I didn't give it 5 stars just because it was missing that special something for me that made it extremely memorable. The prose is very easy to read, very fast to read, but it also at the same time wasn't anything special. It was quite simplistic. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's underlining the fact that, you know, life starts and ends very randomly, but it feels like the book ended at a very random place, and I could have read 200-300 pages more. Those were just some of the reasons why it wasn't a perfect 5-star for me, but nevertheless, I'm glad I read it finally, and I do recommend it to anybody. Next, I listened to The Seven Rings by Nora Roberts. This is book number 3 in the Lost Bride trilogy, so this is a book series that I've completely finished now. I gave this 2.5 stars. It was not very good. It's about Sonia, our main character. She basically inherits this mansion in a coastal town on the East Coast, and she's suddenly, you know, the owner of this beautiful estate. She moves into it and she realizes there's ghosts. There's this family curse where every bride in the family through many generations gets killed by this witch. And she, with the help of her friends and also family members, she basically tries to break this curse. This was such a comfort read. The first book, I think I gave something like 4 or 4.5 stars. I loved it so much because it feels like fan fiction in the best possible way. It's so cozy. You get a lot of just, you know, the characters cooking, cleaning, having conversations, working out, being good at their jobs, maintaining the mansion. So it feels very much like you're just looking at people living their life, and I found that so cozy and calming for book 1. By book 2, I was a little like, okay, like I wish there was a bit more plot, and then book 3, it just felt very repetitive. I feel like there was this pattern that would always repeat itself over and over again, where something supernatural would happen, then after that event they go down to the kitchen to have some food or a drink to calm themselves down, and then they have this conversation where they basically just keep complimenting each other and saying like, oh my god, don't worry, like you're so awesome, you're the best friend, whatever. And it just kept happening over and over again. So yeah, book 1 I was still very much into the coziness, and by book 3 I was like, okay, like let's get on with it. Great start to the series, but not such a great ending. Like my rating kept declining more and more. I'm not opposed to reading more Nora Roberts. I heard Obsession is really good, but this one, unfortunately, not for me. At least the 3rd book. The 1st book I really loved. What does that mean? If I love the 1st book, the 2nd is meh, and the 3rd is really not great, do I still recommend this series? Yes or no? Next is Careless People, a story of where I used to work by Sarah Wynn-Williams. This was a 4-star nonfiction read. If you haven't heard about it, this is essentially about an ex-Facebook, or I should say Meta employee who turned into a whistleblower. She was sued by Meta, so she was not able to promote this book in any way or form. So you will not see any interviews about it, and that kind of sensationalized it even more. So that's why you've probably heard of this book, and yet they weren't allowed to promote it. Listen, was I surprised? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of, wow, these people are even more horrible than I thought, as in Mark Zuckerberg and the entire C-suite of Facebook, and just literally not caring about the terrible impact they were making on global politics, because they were like, nope, we're a private company, we just want to make money. But at the same time, was I surprised that billionaires are terrible people? Not really. Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know how he's not in jail. What I will say though, the one thing that really stuck with me is the portrayal of Sheryl Sandberg. Maybe like you guys, I have read or listened to Lean In quite a few years ago. It was when I was starting to get into a workforce, and it was, you know, so inspirational. And there were a few things now and again that would make me think like, this seems like this is coming, you know, from a place of privilege, because her whole stance was, you know, lean in. Like, as a woman, you need to, you know, invest in your career. Like, don't you dare step down. Women power, you can do it. And I remember thinking, like, sometimes it comes from, like, it feels like very someone who's Caucasian, someone who has a lot of money with a lot of privilege. This seems to be easier for them than for other people, right? And then this book kind of like really honed it in on how toxic Sheryl Sandberg actually is. I mean, Obviously, you know, take everything with a grain of salt because this is still a personal account. Not to say that I don't believe her, I do. I'm just saying that obviously the people depicted in this book are depicted in the worst possible light, but that's the point of it, right? We are ought to know as the audience, like, what goes on behind the scenes. It was dragging sometimes. Anyways, like, yeah, so many wrong things in here. Then I read The Last Apartment in Istanbul by Defne Suman. This is one of the books that my boyfriend gifted me as a like surprise mystery book. I've never heard of this book ever before, and I'm so glad that he bought it for me. It completely exceeded my expectations. This was a 4-star read. I thought this book is about this elderly man in an apartment in Istanbul, and then a new 30-ish, much younger neighbor moves in, Lila. They strike up a friendship, and you know, he gets a new zest for life. I thought that's what it's about. I thought it's, wait, I have it right here. I thought it's like this, a man called Ove, which I'll get to in a sec. It is not. So this is basically, I would describe this as historical fiction because this is about Pericles, our main character, this elderly man who lives in this apartment, telling his life story to Layla so she can write a biography. It's about the expulsion of the Greek community in Istanbul, and this is a part of history that I knew nothing about. I knew that there was some bad blood there in the past, but I didn't know any of what I just learned reading this book. And this man is not just your sweet elderly man. No. He's a man. We go into his past with, you know, with major flaws. He made not so great decisions when he was younger, maybe even when he was older. And it's about, you know, recounting his life story and the people that were in his life, being it his neighbors, his family, the women that he met, and he was not always good to them. So he's a real character with flaws and hopes and dreams. And even in old age, like, he's still pining after a younger woman. I learned so many new things and just completely unexpected. So yeah, if this is also a translated work of fiction. So it was translated by, it says translation copyright by Betsy Gökse. So I think that's a translator. Great piece of literature, highly recommend. Then I read something lighter. I read Goosebumps. This is the Werewolf Fever Swamp. I read this within like a sitting or two. It was just like a great palate cleanser and a reminder of why I used to love R.L. Stine, or not used, I still love him. I'm so sad that they canceled the Goosebumps show. I love anything that comes out by this guy, like in terms of like TV show. A great throwback to when I was in elementary school. Oh, then I read The Spanish Love Deception, a romance. This is pretty big, it's over 400 pages. Pretty long for a romance. This is by Elena Armas. This is actually a signed copy. Isn't this so cute? My sister got this for me because this author came to Germany. This copy is very special to me. I gave this a 3-star. Listen, I had so much fun with this. I thought that the characters were very endearing. The setup was fun. Like, the fake dating trope is cool. So it was basically our main character, Lena, who desperately needed a date for her sister's wedding in Spain. So her like enemy at work, what's his name, Aaron, agrees because of things to be her date. And well, things from there ensue. It was so much fun. I thought that like the setup was great, but I will say that the dialogues were unreadable. And there's a lot of dialogue in here. That really, I was like, oh my God, like, who talks like this? This is not natural sounding at all. I think my problem with romance that does not have any kind of like fantastical setting is that it needs to be cute and entertaining, but not too cringy. And this at times became too cringy because of the dialogues. And then you obviously have those tropes of him being super tall and his like blue eyes and she's so tiny and petite. And then there was also this moment where, you know, he tells her like, stop dieting, you look great as you are. And in my head I was like, it's 2026, like, why do you need a man to tell you that you should eat and you should not starve yourself to the point of where you faint? I mean, this wasn't written in 2026, but it was written pretty recently. So there was just a few things that icked me. He also did that thing that's very Edward from Twilight, where he was like, you know, eat, sit down, very bossy. Who talks like that in real life? If in real life, a man, even if I found him cute, if I had a crush on him, if he suddenly comes to me and is like, oh, eat this, wear this, sit down here, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, why are you telling me what to do? Anyways, but maybe that's just what gets some readers going. I had a lot of fun with it, don't get me wrong, but it was just not a perfect romance, and I don't know if I would recommend it. That's what I'm trying to say. Fun, but not for everyone. Then I did read A Man Called Uwe by Fredrik Backman. So this is also, I think, translated from, is it Swedish? Yes, it was translated by Henning Koch. This is very much emotional manipulation, but like in a very positive way. So I gave this 3.5 stars. It's essentially about this elderly man who just has lost his zest for life. Then suddenly this new family moves in across the street, and you know, they kind of get him to wake up a little, and he starts to live a little bit more. It was cute, it was, you know, quite emotional, but at the same time I did feel like this author was writing this book specifically in mind with how much can we make people cry. And that always feels to me a little like I get it, like this book had one specific goal, and that is, you know, to tug at your heartstrings, and it did that, but it's also not a literary masterpiece. So I liked it. I also watched the movie with Tom Hanks after, which I think was a great adaptation of this book. They did make some changes to kind of make it more relevant or localized to American culture, because in this book he lives in Sweden. It's not going to be one of my favorite books of the year, but you know, if someone would ask me for a recommendation for like an emotional read, I would probably name this book. The last book was a successful 4.5 stars, almost 5 stars, so close. It's The End of Loneliness by Benedict. This is a German author. I read it in German, that's why it says Vom Ende der Einsamkeit here, but in English it's called The End of Loneliness. What a great book. What a great book. I went through this so fast. This is about 3 siblings who lost their parents at a very young age in a car accident. This is not a spoiler. And the book is about, or from the perspective of the youngest, Jules, and how the siblings are dealing with the grief. And it's not so much of dealing with the grief right when it happens. It's more about the decades afterwards and how, you know, that event changed the outcomes of their lives, and, you know, how they, if it brings them closer together, if it drives them apart, how their relationship changes over the course of the years, what kind of relationships they build with other people. And it all always comes back to, you know, that big traumatic event that they had when they were younger. The writing was really beautiful. I loved the exploration of this question of, if something bad happens to you, is there, you know, a balance in the universe? Does it mean that that was it? Or will more bad things happen to you and it's just all random? And how do you go about life after an event like that? Do you go in with the attitude of, you know, let's try to make the best out of it because life's not that long? Or do you just do whatever because life's not that long? There's a lot of great dialogues in here. If you are looking to read more translated fiction, this was translated into English, you should pick it up. It's a great work of litfic. Let me know if you read any of these books, and as I mentioned, I will be back hopefully with reading vlogs, and I hope that my next video is going to be another installment of my project TBR0, because I'm quite happy with how it's going. I'm reading down my pile of books that I already own, and I mean basically all of these that I showed you that I physically, they were books that I already owned, or with the exception of one. So this one I did buy, but then I read it right away. But the rest of them, I had them and they were waiting for me. So yeah, I read all of these down. I'm continuing to make progress. So yeah, let me know in the comments also what you're reading right now. And if you don't want to comment anything and you just want to let me know that you're still watching, why don't you leave me an airplane emoji? Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.